Hey guys, welcome to another short The Big Picture Blueprint episode. Today we're talking about matching your buyer and your goals with the type of land you're targeting. I think this is something that is often done wrong. What do you think, Mason?
I agree. I think there's a lot of ways to go about this business, and it really depends on what type of business you're actually looking to create. And I think it's kind of ever evolving, probably for both of us. We've never felt fully confident calling ourselves land investors whenever we're trying to do really quick flips because we're just essentially wholesaling. We're just actually buying it ourselves, as versus some people that are in it for the long haul, looking for passive investment, and other people that are looking to create really, really large returns in kind of the medium, short and medium term. So I think being able to first identify what your goal is with what you're trying to create and then match the product, just like we're talking about here, can be really powerful for you to have clear direction in the business that you're actually seeking to operate.
Yeah, and a big part of why this was on my mind is because I did this wrong when I was starting. When I first really got into land, I thought, all right, let's sell on terms and get a nice base of revenue coming in. But I was targeting all small, cheap infill lots at a really hot time in the market when building was going crazy here in Pueblo West. And that just didn't work. The problem was the buyers for these lots wanted to build like now, right away, or maybe in 6 months, but very, very soon. And so they didn't want terms. A few of them did, and then they paid the notes off right away. So this was not a good product to go after wanting to build recurring revenue streams. And on the flip side, I see people that are new who need to make money quickly go and target, lots like this out in the middle of not nowhere, but quite a ways from town. And this is a lot harder to sell for cash and much, much easier to sell for terms. And so you have to be aware of who the buyer is in that market for the product you're targeting before you get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and going back to Pueblo West, because something I've encountered is for the more median income housing, most builders will not want seller financing terms on the product. The basis on the land is what they're used to paying, and that's just kind of how it works. But with that being said, on some of the more luxury pieces of land, just talking to builders, they're really happy to get seller financing terms if and only if the seller is willing to subordinate their first position on the loan. So, for instance, that Franktown property that I sold, I'm getting, I don't even know, 5, 6, 7% interest only payments, which amounts to about 17 or 1800 bucks a month on it. Uh, and the builder is building right now, but I did have to sign over documents to subordinate my first position, which I would not do that with just the mom and pop person. Like for you on that piece of land out in Rush, Colorado, for instance, I would not subordinate my first position
Mm-hmm.
because I know that it might be a nightmare because I can't look online and they have a ton of reviews as a builder or something like that. So it's, beyond that. Um, yeah. So it works really well with those kind of mid-sized professional builders. It's not going to work with the mom and pop that's looking to build their own home. And it's usually not going to work with the institutional builders like a Lennar or DR Horton or something like that. But it is an option, typically just not with these median price homes.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of codify it. Now, one more type of land that is top of mind, because we've had these submitted to us where someone will send a big piece of land in a major metro or close to a major metro where we're looking at a 3, 5, 10 year project to get the property entitled and fully built out. And what you need to keep in mind is, again, if you're trying to make cash quickly, you probably aren't going to be able to do that with a big property. And that's what I was pulling up here as I'm talking. Recently a friend of mine sent me some industrial properties in Colorado Springs where the due diligence period that a buyer is going to want in order to buy these is 90 days at the very minimum, but very likely 180 plus days. I think of some of the people we've had on our podcast that do exclusively these big entitlement plays, and they're looking at waiting 6, 9, 12 months to know if they're going to get paid. My computer's being a little problematic here, but it's kind of beside the point. It's just a big piece of industrial land in Colorado Springs. And so if you're looking at big tracts of land that would be used for a major development of any kind, where someone's going to put in curb and gutter and do a bunch of houses, or do a big RV storage facility like this might be used for, or self-storage, you're very likely looking at a long due diligence and contract period. And you're not going to be able to monetize this quickly unless you just have it at a crazy discount and sell it to someone else.
Yeah, and there is a play there, and you don't necessarily always have to take it down yourself. But when you look at the model of what people that are really successful, there's a reason earnest money deposit funding exists, because on a lot of these properties where it's a multi 7 or 8 figure purchase, you're putting up $250,000 to $500,000 in earnest money, which typically is going to go hard after 60 or 90 days, and the option period on the land amounts to becoming 6 to 12 months, because you're actually seeking out to get all of the necessary approvals and that you're going to need during the contract or during the option period. So while it is a business model that can be really, really lucrative, it's something that you have to be very well capitalized. You cannot expect to have money coming in on a regular basis. This needs to be probably something that you're doing full time. And there's a reason that there's not a lot of mom and pop investors, which that's what Dan and I consider ourselves, that are able to execute on projects like this. So you really need to think about your goals and think about how long of a runway you have for your personal finances and your business before you try and take on some project that might take 2 years, that at the end of 2 years, you might not be able to even do it, because government regulations can change. The specifics of the project can change to the point where it no longer pencils as the pro forma intended it to. It's just something to be really, really considerate of.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you're trying to wholesale this property, that is still going to be hard to do quickly, because not many people will close on this quickly, because they want to know for sure that the local municipality is going to let them do what they want. So big picture, how do you know this, right? You go to any given market, how do you know whether or not this is the property you're targeting is something you can sell quickly or not? Well, generally speaking, cheap to moderately priced infill lots near a major metro, assuming it's growing and there's building going on, you're going to be able to move those quickly. And on the flip side, a lot of the very rural acreage properties where you're not going to have a builder come in and put a house, you're not going to have Lennar come in and do a subdivision, there's probably a much higher chance that you're going to have a harder time selling it for cash, and that land would be best served sold on terms, like the Colorado property I showed earlier on here. And then the larger entitlement plays are kind of obvious. They're big pieces of land in a major metro, everything around it's developed. So that's kind of the general rules of thumb as to how I look at that. Anything to add there, Mason?
I think, fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of what we're talking about requires you to reflect on the business model that you're actually creating, because this can be a really successful investment thesis that you create, selling property on terms that pay you at pretty high interest rates for long terms of, long periods of time. You don't really get tax benefits from it. Or you can create an income generating model doing those quick wholesale infill lots, or you can create a really substantial 7-figure business going through the entitlement and development. But they're all very different, and the products that you're working with and the buyers that you're working with are all very, very different. So it's on you to figure out what you want to create in your own business.